So Pride, we're celebrating the Pride month. It's June, and I'm going to talk about the philosophy of pride and what it means for us and for the world in history. Um, we talk about pride all the time, and more so now that we associate the word pride with the LGBT community. And I see a lot of videos about pride, but we rarely talk about the philosophy of pride, pride as a word, pride as a concept. So the origin of the word pride is that it comes from the word prude, which is an old French word that means brave or valiant. And back then it was supposed to describe a good quality of a person. And it happens so that now, many years later, many centuries later, we use it to describe the bad quality of a person. We say a person is proud. So when we talk about pride, we rarely address what it truly means for an individual, and what it actually suggests is the increased affirmation towards the sense of self, or the increased awareness of the sense of self. And we all have a sense of self. We all have a sense of self that um, we need to keep in check, because it affects how we how we perceive ourselves, and it affects our well-being and our social and personal lives. Now, why do we need pride in the context of a community? This is pride for individual person, sense of self. A community, when pride is applied to a community, when pride represents community, it represents the different selves of the different people in a community. But it also ends up becoming a self within itself for the community. So to define a community, there has to be pride, and more so for a community that is being resisted by, say, the rest of the world or the environment, or more people, or there's less tolerance towards a certain community. It needs pride to put forward its position in the world and its existence in the world. So now pride represents LGBT community today, and LGBT people have a sexual orientation, or a sexual choice beyond the um, commonly seen man and woman relationship. Now, this has been around for many years. There's a lot of evidence, a lot of art, a lot of ancient literature and documents that suggest that we've had relationships beyond the man-woman relationship for many years and for many centuries, and in different parts of the world, in different communities, in different groups, in different countries, and we've really had it. But the need to define it, the need to call it homosexuality, came no earlier than the 19th century. And why is that? Is because there was a lot of the presence of religion was increasing, and I don't want to name which religion or what kind of people, but I just want to put forward that we all know what religion it is, but that's the main cause of attempting to understand it. And yes, obviously there was a lot of psychological thought being put into it, and a lot of research being put into it, but homosexuality as a word came forward no earlier than the 19th century. And flash forward many years, and there was always, some resistance, some criticism for the community, or it wasn't really a community at the time. It was just something that was outcasted or shunned, and often looked down upon. So a kind of a lifestyle that was seen or present for many years, for many centuries, was um, suddenly treated that way, or subjected to this kind of a treatment. And in the 1950s, 1960s, primarily in the land of United States of America, which is the home ground for all the trends and all the pop culture ideas and pop culture beliefs, In the 1950s and the 60s, there was two big issues. There were two big issues that were found in America, and one of them was the increase in racism. And I know it was always improving from the slave trade of the history, and kind of going forward, and it's still improving in my opinion. But racism was big in the 50s and the 60s, and the other issue was the increase in the presence of religion, and increase in the presence of religion in the matters of the law and the matters of governance as well. So that increased the sort of the resistance and criticism for the community of LGBT people, and that gave rise to a lot of violence, a lot of riots, a lot of racism, um, and homophobic behavior. So for people that are of uh, the opposing race and that are homosexuals, they also faced a lot of violence from people that were racist and homophobic at the same time. And this kind of led to the Pride movement, where the Stonewall riots, which happened in the month of June, and which is why we celebrate the Pride month. It's still an important part of our lives. It's an important part of the society that we live in, and because there is a lot of resistance, and because resistance exists for the community, pride exists in the world. And as long as there will be resistance, there will be pride for any community, for any position, for any person, for any belief. There will always be pride, because there is some amount of resistance, and that's the purpose of pride. It's to put forward your existence, or to throw some light on the issues that a particular community or a set of people or a group of people face. And because our communication has become very easy, because our access to information has become very, very smooth, I think we have information about places in the world, about trends in the world, about different parts of the world, and the issues that are ongoing in the different parts of the world. And that is one of the reasons why we still talk about, and we talk about pride increasingly every day. And if you look at the list of most homophobic countries, and I don't know how you define it, I don't know if you define it based on a general level of tolerance amongst people, or the nature of the laws that these countries have. But because like a lot of countries have rights for LGBT people, but they do not necessarily have any action um, against violence or crimes against LGBT people. So there's rights and there's protections, and in some countries they do not necessarily mean the same thing for the LGBT community. So Russia is always labeled as a homophobic country. It has 144 million people, but you don't know how many people are LGBT. It's a very difficult categorization. Middle East is always amongst that list. Some countries in Africa, Uganda, Senegal, but Europe is doing great in terms of um, not being homophobic countries. For India, there are places where there is tolerance. There are places where there is not a lot of tolerance, and that is because of the number of people we have. And 1.3 billion people is quite a lot to um, and for that pride to live up to, because reportedly we have only 2.5 million LGBT people as of 2012. It might be a little more even then, and it might be a little more today, but it is not. It is certainly nothing close to the total population, and it's quite less today. And I think that's why there is a need for pride. There's a need for a voice, which is small voice, but a need for a voice, so that at least sensitivity and compassion is attained, and things don't lead to violence and bloodshed. So that's it. This is the video for Pride. Thank you for watching.